The dust cloud behind the runaway mare grew larger with every thundering hoofbeat, and Xavier Trenton knew he had mere seconds to stop that horse before the woman clinging desperately to its back was thrown to her death against the rocky terrain of New Mexico territory. It was August of 1882, and the sun beat down mercilessly on the landscape near Glenrio, a small settlement that straddled the border between New Mexico and Texas. Xavier had been riding his stallion back from checking fence lines on his modest ranch when he heard the terrified screams cutting through the afternoon heat. His eyes immediately locked onto the scene unfolding before him. A woman in a green traveling dress hanging on for dear life as her horse bolted across the open plain, completely out of control. Without hesitation, Xavier dug his heels into his mount and gave chase. His black stallion, Storm, was built for speed and had never failed him. The distance between them closed rapidly as Xavier urged Storm forward, his heart pounding not from the exertion but from the knowledge that one wrong move could cost this woman everything. The runaway mare was foam-flecked and wild-eyed, clearly spooked by something Xavier could not see. Perhaps a rattlesnake or a sudden noise had startled the animal. The woman atop the saddle had lost her hat, and her dark auburn hair streamed behind her like a banner. Her hands gripped the saddle horn with white-knuckled desperation, and Xavier could see that her feet had slipped free of the stirrups. "Hold on," Xavier shouted, though he doubted she could hear him over the pounding hooves and her own panicked breathing. He guided Storm alongside the runaway horse, matching its frantic pace. The ground beneath them was treacherous, dotted with prairie dog holes and scattered rocks that could snap a horse's leg in an instant. Xavier had to act fast. Leaning far out of his saddle, Xavier reached for the runaway mare's bridle. His fingers brushed leather once, twice, then finally caught hold. The sudden jerk nearly unseated him, but years of bronc riding had taught him balance. He tightened his grip and began pulling both horses gradually to the side, away from the rocky outcropping they were rapidly approaching. "Easy, easy now," Xavier called out in the calm, steady voice he used for spooked animals. The mare's eyes still showed white, but she was responding to the pressure, her gallop beginning to slow. Xavier maintained his iron grip, knowing that if he let go now, the horse would bolt again with renewed terror. It took another 100 yards before both horses came to a shuddering stop. The mare's sides heaved like bellows, and sweat darkened her coat. The woman remained frozen in the saddle, her face pale beneath a layer of dust, her hands still locked around the saddle horn as though they had been forged there. Xavier swung down from Storm and immediately went to the woman's side. "Madam, you are safe now. You can let go." She turned her face toward him, and Xavier felt something shift inside his chest. Her eyes were the color of honey shot through with sunlight, wide with lingering fear, but also intelligence and awareness. Her face, though streaked with dust and tears, possessed a delicate beauty that reminded him of the porcelain dolls he had seen once in a shop window in Santa Fe. But there was nothing fragile about the determination he saw in the set of her jaw. "I cannot," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "My hands will not obey me." Xavier understood immediately. The terror had locked her muscles. He had seen it happen to men after close calls with death. Gently, he reached up and placed his hands over hers. "Look at me," he said softly. "Look right at me and take a breath." Her golden eyes met his, and he saw her chest rise as she drew in air. "Good. Now another. I have got you. You will not fall. I promise you that." Something in his voice must have reached through her panic, because he felt her hands begin to relax under his. Slowly, carefully, he helped her uncurl her fingers from the saddle horn. Her whole body was trembling, and when he lifted her down from the mare, her legs buckled. Xavier caught her easily, steadying her against his chest. She was lighter than he expected, and he could feel her heart racing like a frightened bird. "Take your time. There is no rush now." "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was going to die." "Not today," Xavier said, and he was rewarded with a tremulous smile. They stood like that for a long moment, the woman leaning against him while she gathered her strength. Xavier found himself acutely aware of everything about her. The faint scent of lavender that clung to her despite the dust, the way her hair caught the sunlight and turned to burnished copper, the delicate bone structure of her shoulders beneath his hands. Finally, she pulled back slightly, though Xavier kept one hand on her elbow to steady her. "I am Lily Jameson," she said, her voice growing stronger. "I arrived in Glenrio just this morning from St. Louis. I rented that mare from the livery stable, and she seemed perfectly calm until we got out here and she just went mad." "Xavier Trenton," he replied, touching the brim of his hat. "I've got a ranch about 5 miles from town. That mare probably saw a snake or maybe even a mountain lion. This country can be harsh on those not accustomed to it." Lily looked around at the vast expanse of desert and scrubland, and Xavier saw her shiver despite the heat. "It is beautiful," she said quietly, "but you are right. It is nothing like what I am used to. Everything in Missouri is so green and close together. Here, you can see forever." "What brings you to Glenrio?" Xavier asked, though part of him was simply looking for any excuse to keep her talking, to hear the musical quality of her voice. "My uncle passed away 3 months ago," Lily explained, sadness crossing her features. "He owned a small ranch near here, and he left it to me in his will. I came to see the property and decide whether to sell it or try to make a go of it. Though after this experience, perhaps I should just sell and return home." "Your uncle would not have left it to you if he did not think you could handle it," Xavier said. "Do not let one spooked horse make your decision for you." Lily studied him for a long moment, and Xavier felt the weight of her gaze. "You are very kind, Mr. Trenton. Most men I know would have given me a lecture about women not knowing how to handle horses." "Most men are fools," Xavier replied simply. "I have known plenty of women who could outride and outrope any man. It just takes practice and knowledge of the land." A genuine smile curved Lily's lips, and Xavier felt that strange sensation in his chest again, like something warm unfurling. "Perhaps you could teach me," she said, then immediately colored. "I apologize. That was too forward. You have already done so much." "I would be happy to," Xavier found himself saying. "If you are serious about staying, you will need to know how to handle yourself out here. This country does not forgive mistakes." "I am serious," Lily said, and he heard the steel beneath the softness. "My uncle wrote to me often about this place. He loved it deeply, and he wanted me to love it too. I owe it to him to at least try." Xavier nodded, respect for this woman growing with each passing moment. "Then let me ride back to town with you. That mare has calmed down, but I would feel better knowing you got back safely." "I would appreciate that very much," Lily said. They mounted up, Lily much more cautiously this time, and began the slow ride back toward Glenrio. The town sat in a shallow valley, a collection of wooden buildings and false-fronted stores that served the scattered ranches and travelers passing through on the railroad. It was not much to look at, but it was home to Xavier, and he found himself seeing it through Lily's eyes as they approached. "The train comes through twice a week," Xavier said, pointing to the railway depot. "That building there is the general store, run by the Walters family. They are good people. The hotel is next to the saloon, and the livery is at the far end of the main street. There is a small church, though we only have a circuit preacher who comes through once a month." "It is smaller than I imagined," Lily said, but there was no judgment in her voice, only observation. Most people just pass through on their way to somewhere else, Xavier admitted. But those of us who stay, we take care of each other. We have to out here. They reached the livery stable, where a grizzled old man named Frank Willis looked up from repairing a bridle. His eyes widened when he saw Lily's disheveled state. "Miss Jameson, what happened?" "The mare bolted," Lily explained, sliding down from the saddle. "Mr. Trenton here saved my life." Frank's weathered face creased with concern. "I am mighty sorry, miss. That mare came in with a shipment last week, and she seemed gentle enough. I would never have rented her to you if I had thought she would act up like that." "It was not your fault," Lily assured him. "Something spooked her out on the plain." Xavier dismounted and examined the mare more carefully. Her eyes had returned to normal, and she stood quietly now, but he noticed scarring on her flanks that suggested she had been roughly treated in the past. "This horse has been hurt before," he said quietly to Frank. "See those scars? Someone used spurs on her hard. A sudden movement or sound might have triggered a memory." Frank cursed under his breath. "I will send word to the horse trader who sold her to me. Miss Jameson, I will refund your money, and you can have free use of any other horse in my stable." "Thank you, Mr. Willis," Lily said graciously. As they walked away from the livery, Lily turned to Xavier. "Would you join me for supper at the hotel?" "It is the least I can do to thank you properly." Xavier knew he should decline. He had work waiting back at the ranch, fence lines to finish checking, cattle to move to better grazing. But looking at Lily, with the late afternoon sun turning her hair to flame and those extraordinary eyes watching him hopefully, he found himself nodding. "I would like that." The hotel restaurant was modest, offering simple fare prepared by the owner's wife. But the fried chicken was crispy and hot, the biscuits fresh, and the coffee strong. Xavier and Lily sat at a table near the window, and as they ate, they talked. Xavier learned that Lily was 23 years old, the daughter of a banker who had died 5 years earlier. Her mother had passed when Lily was just a child, and she had been raised primarily by her father and various housekeepers. She had attended a finishing school in St. Louis and worked as a teacher for the past 2 years. Her uncle, her father's brother, had been the adventurous one in the family, coming west 30 years ago to make his fortune in ranching. Though he had never struck it rich, he had carved out a life for himself and had never regretted his choice. "He used to write me letters filled with stories about the land," Lily said, her eyes distant with memory. "About sunsets that painted the whole sky red and gold, about the silence that was so complete you could hear your own heartbeat, about the satisfaction of building something with your own 2 hands. He made it sound like paradise." "It can be," Xavier said, "but it can also be hell. The winters are hard, water is scarce, and the isolation gets to some people. You have to really want to be here to make it work." "Did you always want to be here?" Lily asked. Xavier considered the question. He was 26 years old and had spent the last 8 years building his ranch from nothing. "I grew up in Texas," he said. "My father was a cattleman, and I learned the trade from him. He died when I was 16, and my mother followed a year later. I sold what they had left and came to New Mexico looking for land of my own. I wanted space, freedom, a place where I could build something that would last." "Have you found it?" Lily asked softly. "I think so," Xavier replied, surprised by how much he meant it. He had never put the feeling into words before, but sitting here with this woman who looked at him with such genuine interest, it felt right to try. "My place is not much yet, just a small ranch house and a couple of outbuildings. I've got maybe 200 head of cattle and a string of horses. But it is mine, built with my own sweat and blood. Every fence post I drove into this ground, every stone I laid in that house, that is me. That is my mark on this world." Lily's eyes shone with understanding. That is how my uncle felt. You would have liked him, I think. I knew him a bit, Xavier admitted. Daniel Jameson, right? He had the place about 10 miles northeast of here. He kept mostly to himself, but he was a fair man. He helped me out a few times when I first started, gave me advice about where to find water and which grazing areas were best. I am sorry for your loss. Thank you, Lily said quietly. I wish I had known him better. He came back east a few times when I was young, but after my father died, the visits stopped. I think it was too painful for him, being in the city where his brother should have been. They talked long into the evening, the restaurant emptying around them until finally the owner's wife came out and gently suggested they might be more comfortable continuing their conversation in the hotel lobby. Embarrassed at having lingered so long, they quickly settled their bill and moved to the worn leather chairs near the fireplace. Tell me about your ranch, Lily said, curling her feet beneath her skirt in a gesture that Xavier found endearing. What is it called? I have not named it, Xavier admitted. Never seemed necessary when it was just me. Every place should have a name, Lily insisted. It gives it character, makes it real. Xavier smiled. What would you call it? Lily thought for a moment. What does the land look like there? Describe it to me. There is a mesa that rises up on the western edge of the property, Xavier said, picturing it in his mind. It catches the sunset every evening and turns this incredible shade of red. There is a creek that runs through the center of the land, fed by an underground spring that never runs dry even in the worst drought. Cottonwood trees grow along the creek, and in the spring they get these seeds that float through the air like snow. Storm Mesa Ranch, Lily said decisively. After your horse and that red mesa. Xavier tested the name in his mind and found he liked it. Storm Mesa Ranch, it has a good ring to it. When can I see it? Lily asked, then immediately looked flustered. I apologize again. I keep being too forward. My father used to say my curiosity would get me in trouble someday. You are welcome anytime, Xavier said, and he meant it. In fact, if you are serious about learning to handle yourself out here, I could show you your uncle's property, help you assess what needs to be done. Lily's face lit up. Would you really? I was dreading having to figure it all out on my own. It would be my pleasure, Xavier said, and it would be, he realized. For the first time in years, he looked forward to spending time with someone other than his horses and cattle. They made arrangements to meet the following morning, and Xavier finally took his leave, riding Storm back toward his ranch under a sky brilliant with stars. The night air had turned cool, and he breathed it in deeply, feeling more alive than he had in longer than he could remember. He had not been looking for anyone. After 8 years of solitary life, of focusing solely on building his ranch, he had almost forgotten what it felt like to connect with another person. But something about Lily Jameson had reached past all his carefully constructed walls and reminded him that there was more to life than just surviving. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Xavier was up before sunrise, as always, taking care of his animals and gulping down a quick breakfast of eggs and yesterday's bread. He shaved carefully, something he did not always bother with, and put on his newest shirt, a dark blue cotton one that did not have any patches. He told himself he was not trying to impress anyone, but he knew he was lying. He arrived in Glenrio just after 8 o'clock and found Lily waiting outside the hotel. She wore a practical riding outfit, a split skirt and sturdy boots that suggested she had come better prepared than he had initially thought. Her hair was pulled back in a thick braid, and her face was shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. "Good morning," she said, smiling up at him in a way that made his heart skip. "I am ready for my first real lesson in surviving the New Mexico territory." "Then let us start with getting you a better horse," Xavier said, dismounting and offering her his arm as they walked toward the livery. Frank Willis had a gentle gelding already saddled and waiting. "This here is Copper," Frank said, patting the horse's neck. "He is steady as they come and nothing spooks him. He will treat you right, Miss Jameson." Lily approached the horse carefully, holding out her hand for him to sniff. Xavier watched approvingly as she introduced herself to the animal properly, speaking in low, soothing tones before attempting to mount. This time, with a calm horse beneath her and the trauma of yesterday behind her, she swung into the saddle with reasonable grace. "How does he feel?" Xavier asked, mounting Storm. "Good," Lily said, settling into the saddle and gathering the reins. "Solid." They rode out of town heading northeast toward the property that had belonged to Daniel Jameson. The morning was still relatively cool, and Xavier pointed out various landmarks as they traveled, teaching Lily how to navigate by the shape of distant mesas and the course of dry washes. "You cannot always rely on trails out here," he explained. "Wind and flash floods can erase them overnight. You need to know the land itself, the permanent features that will not change." Lily listened intently, asking intelligent questions that showed she was serious about learning. Xavier found himself enjoying the role of teacher, sharing knowledge that had been hard-won through years of experience. Daniel Jameson's ranch came into view after about an hour's ride. It was smaller than Xavier's place, but well-maintained. The ranch house was built of adobe, thick-walled to keep out both heat and cold. There was a barn, a corral, and what looked like a chicken coop. A windmill turned lazily, pumping water into a storage tank. "Oh," Lily breathed, pulling Copper to a stop. "It is lovely." Xavier looked at the property with a critical eye. "Your uncle took good care of it." "The buildings are sound, the well is clearly functioning, and that corral fencing looks recent." "Did he have hands working for him?" "His lawyer said he had 2 men who helped him, brothers named Martinez. They stayed on after he died to take care of the animals, hoping I would keep them employed." "Miguel and Carlos Martinez," Xavier said, nodding. "I know them. They are good men, hard workers. You would be lucky to keep them." As if summoned by their words, 2 men emerged from the barn. They were in their 30s, lean and weathered, with the efficient movements of men who knew their work. Their faces registered surprise at seeing Lily, then cautious hope. "You must be Miss Jameson," the taller one said, removing his hat respectfully. "I am Miguel Martinez, and this is my brother Carlos. We are very sorry about Mr. Daniel. He was a good man." "Thank you," Lily said, dismounting with Xavier's assistance. "He spoke very highly of you both in his letters. I understand you have been keeping the ranch running." "Yes, madam," Carlos said. "We have been feeding the cattle and horses, maintaining the buildings. We did not know when you would arrive or what you would want to do with the place." "I would like you to stay on if you are willing," Lily said immediately. "I am going to need all the help I can get. I know very little about ranching and I have much to learn." The relief on both men's faces was obvious. "We would be honored, Miss Jameson," Miguel said. "Mr. Daniel was teaching us this land, and we would be pleased to help you learn it too." Xavier spent the next several hours showing Lily around her new property. They inspected the cattle, about 60 head grazing in a pasture near the creek. They checked the condition of the buildings and discussed what supplies would be needed. The Martinez brothers proved to be a wealth of information, explaining Daniel's systems and routines. "Your uncle was smart about water," Xavier observed as they stood by the creek in the afternoon heat. "This branch feeds off the same underground source that supplies my land. It is one of the best water sources in the county." "How much land is there total?" Lily asked. "According to the property records, about 800 acres, Miguel replied. "Mr. Daniel was always hoping to expand, but he ran out of time." Lily was quiet for a moment, her eyes scanning the horizon. Xavier could see her thinking, calculating, planning. "Could this place support more cattle?" she asked finally. "With proper management, yes," Xavier said. "You could probably run another 100 head without overtaxing the grazing." "Then that is what I will work toward," Lily said decisively. "This land was my uncle's dream, and I intend to honor that by making it thrive." Over the following weeks, Xavier became a frequent visitor to the Jameson ranch. He told himself he was just being neighborly, helping Lily learn what she needed to know. But the truth was, he looked forward to every excuse to see her. She was unlike anyone he had ever known, combining a fierce determination to succeed with a genuine gentleness that won over even the wariest animals. She was not afraid of hard work. Xavier watched her learn to mend fences, to doctor sick cattle, to read the signs of changing weather. She fell many times but always got back up, dusting herself off with a rueful laugh and trying again. The Martinez brothers clearly adored her, treating her with a mixture of respect and protective affection. And Xavier fell a little more in love with her each day, though he tried to deny it to himself. He had no business courting someone like Lily Jameson. She was educated, refined, from a completely different world than his rough rancher's existence. Once she realized how hard this life truly was, she would likely return to St. Louis, back to civilization and comfort. But as summer faded into fall, Lily showed no signs of leaving. She bought more cattle using the money her uncle had left her, carefully selecting healthy animals with Xavier's advice. She had the ranch house cleaned and repaired, making it truly livable. She even started a vegetable garden, determined to make the place as self-sufficient as possible. One evening in late September, Xavier stayed for supper at Lily's invitation. The Martinez brothers had gone into town, leaving them alone for the first time in weeks. Lily prepared a simple meal of beef stew and cornbread, and they ate at the rough wooden table in her kitchen. "I want to thank you," Lily said as they finished eating. "I could not have done any of this without your help." "You would have figured it out," Xavier said honestly. "You are one of the most determined people I have ever met." "Determined, yes," Lily agreed with a small smile. "But also terrified half the time. This life is so different from everything I have known. There are moments when I wake up and wonder what I am doing here, so far from everything familiar." "What keeps you from leaving?" Xavier asked, though part of him was afraid of the answer. Lily met his eyes, and he saw something in her gaze that made his breath catch. "At first, it was obligation to my uncle's memory, but now it is more than that. I have come to love this place, Xavier. The vast sky, the stark beauty of the land, the satisfaction of hard work well done. And the people here have been so kind. You have been so kind." "It is not kindness," Xavier said quietly. "I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. I want to see you happy." "Why?" Lily asked, and there was a vulnerability in her voice that made Xavier's careful control crack. "Because somewhere between pulling you off that runaway horse and now, I fell in love with you," Xavier said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I know I have no right. You come from a different world and you deserve better than a rough rancher who barely has 2 coins to rub together. But I cannot help how I feel, Lily. You have become everything to me." For a long moment, Lily simply stared at him, her honey-colored eyes wide with surprise. Then, to Xavier's amazement, tears began to roll down her cheeks. "I am sorry," he said immediately, standing from the table. "I should not have said anything. Please forget I spoke." "No," Lily said, standing as well and crossing to him. She placed her hands on his chest, looking up at him with those tear-bright eyes. "I am not crying because I am upset. I am crying because I was so afraid you only saw me as a responsibility, someone who needed help. Xavier, I have been in love with you for weeks now. You are the reason I stayed, the reason I worked so hard to prove I could make a life here. I wanted to be worthy of you. Worthy of me, Xavier repeated incredulously. He cupped her face gently in his calloused hands, marveling that this incredible woman thought she needed to prove anything. Lily, you are educated, accomplished, beautiful, brave. I am just a cowboy with dirt under his fingernails and more dreams than sense. You are the finest man I have ever known, Lily said fiercely. You are honest and hardworking and kind. You see the best in people. You believe in me when I barely believe in myself. How could I not love you? Xavier kissed her then, unable to hold back any longer. Her lips were soft beneath his, and she melted into his arms as though she belonged there. It was a kiss filled with all the longing and fear and hope that had been building between them for months. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "Marry me," Xavier said, the words surprising him even as he spoke them. But once they were out, he knew they were right. "I know it is fast, and I should probably court you properly for months before asking. But I am not a man who plays games, Lily. I want you in my life today, tomorrow, for all the tomorrows to come. Marry me and let me spend the rest of my days making you happy." "Yes," Lily said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, of course, yes." They were married 6 weeks later on a crisp November afternoon. The circuit preacher happened to be in town, and the small church was packed with every rancher and townsperson for 50 miles. Lily wore a simple dress of cream-colored wool, and Xavier wore his only suit, brushed and pressed for the occasion. The Martinez brothers served as witnesses, beaming with pride as though they had personally arranged the match. The celebration afterward was held in the hotel restaurant, with food and drink donated by half the town. Frank Willis gave a toast about how the best things in life started with a runaway horse, which got a big laugh. Others spoke about what a fine couple Xavier and Lily made, how they could see the love between them as clear as day. As Xavier danced with his new wife under the light of kerosene lanterns, he thought about the strange paths life took. Just a few months ago, he had been alone, content with his solitary existence. Now he had a partner, someone to share the burdens and joys of this hard but beautiful life. "What are you thinking?" Lily asked, her head resting against his shoulder as they swayed to the music. "That I am the luckiest man alive," Xavier replied honestly, "and that I cannot wait to start our life together." "Where will we live?" Lily asked. "Your ranch or mine?" It was a practical question that they had not yet fully discussed. Xavier had been so caught up in the joy of knowing Lily loved him that he had not thought through all the details. "What do you want to do?" "I think we should combine the operations," Lily said thoughtfully. "My land borders yours on the east. Together, we would have almost 2,000 acres. We could run more cattle, build a stronger operation, but we would need to decide where to make our home." "Your uncle's house is bigger," Xavier said, "and it is closer to town, which might matter if we have children someday." The word children felt strange in his mouth, but also right. He realized he wanted that with Lily, wanted to build not just a ranch but a family. "But your house has that view of the mesa," Lily said with a smile. "And you built it yourself. I know how much that means to you." "We could split our time," Xavier suggested. "Or we could build something new eventually, something that is ours together." "I like that idea," Lily said. "Something that belongs to both of us." They spent their wedding night at Xavier's ranch, in the house he had built with his own hands. He had cleaned and prepared it as best he could, but he was still self-conscious about its rough simplicity. Lily, however, looked around with delight. "I love it," she said, running her hand along the stone fireplace. "I can feel you in every corner of this place, Xavier. The care and attention you put into it." That night, Xavier learned that love could be both tender and passionate, gentle and all-consuming. Lily came to him without hesitation or fear, trusting him completely. And Xavier made sure that trust was rewarded, treating her with all the reverence and care she deserved. In the morning, they woke tangled together in Xavier's narrow bed, the early light filtering through the single window. Lily traced patterns on Xavier's chest, her hair spread across his shoulder like silk. "Tell me about your dreams," she said softly. "What do you want for our future?" Xavier thought about it. "I want to build the best ranch in New Mexico territory. I want people to know that Storm Mesa means quality cattle and honest dealing. I want to build a house big enough for a family, with a porch where we can sit on summer evenings. I want to grow old with you, Lily, watching our children and maybe even our grandchildren work this land." "That sounds perfect," Lily said, and Xavier heard the smile in her voice. "I want all of that too, but I also want to bring some culture to this wild place. I want to start a proper school in Glen Rio so children can get an education. I want to host gatherings where neighbors can come together and share news and friendship. I want to bridge the gap between the life I left behind and the life we are building here." "You want to civilize the frontier," Xavier said, amused but also impressed. "Is that so wrong?" Lily asked. "Not at all," Xavier assured her. "This territory needs more people like you, people willing to invest in community and future. I think it is a wonderful idea." They spent the next few months settling into married life and combining their ranching operations. It was hard work, requiring long days and constant attention, but they tackled it together. The Martinez brothers proved invaluable, managing the day-to-day operations of the former Jameson property while Xavier and Lily worked on expanding both herds. Winter came early and hard that year. By December, snow covered the ground and temperatures plummeted. Xavier taught Lily how to protect the cattle in harsh weather, how to break ice on water troughs, how to watch for signs of hypothermia and frostbite in the animals. They lost a few head to the cold, which hit Xavier hard, but Lily reminded him that losses were part of ranching life. "We will build back stronger in the spring," she said, holding him close by the fireplace as wind howled outside. "This is just one season, Xavier. We have many ahead of us." As the winter deepened, they spent more time at the Jameson property, which was indeed larger and better insulated than Xavier's original cabin. Lily transformed the house into a real home. Hanging curtains she sewed herself, arranging furniture donated by townspeople, and creating spaces that felt warm and welcoming despite the cold outside. On Christmas Eve, they hosted a dinner for the Martinez brothers and a few neighbors who lived nearby. Lily cooked for days, preparing dishes both traditional and experimental. The house filled with laughter and conversation, and Xavier felt a contentment he had never known before. This was what he had been missing all those years alone, this sense of belonging and community. "Your wife is very special," Miguel told Xavier as they stood outside after dinner, smoking cigars under a sky brilliant with stars. "She has a gift for bringing people together." "I know," Xavier said. "Sometimes I still cannot believe she chose this life." "She chose well," Carlos said, joining them. "You are a good man, Xavier, and together you two will do great things. We can all feel it." When spring finally arrived, it came with a burst of color and life. Wildflowers carpeted the plains and newborn calves dotted the pastures. Xavier and Lily worked from before dawn until after dark, branding cattle, repairing fences damaged by winter storms, and planning for the year ahead. In April, Lily announced she was pregnant. Xavier received the news with a mixture of joy and terror. He was going to be a father. The responsibility of it nearly overwhelmed him, but Lily laughed at his worried expression. "We will figure it out together," she assured him, "just like we have figured out everything else." "What if I am no good at it?" Xavier asked. "What if I fail?" "You will not fail," Lily said with absolute certainty. "You are going to be a wonderful father, Xavier. You are patient and kind and strong. Our child will be lucky to have you." Xavier pulled her close, marveling at the miracle of new life growing inside her. "Our child," he repeated. "That sounds amazing." As Lily's pregnancy progressed, Xavier became fiercely protective. He tried to take over all her chores, but Lily refused to be coddled. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she insisted. "I need to stay active." They compromised, with Lily handling lighter tasks while Xavier took on the more strenuous work. The Martinez brothers hovered as well, treating Lily like precious porcelain, which she found both annoying and endearing. True to her word, Lily also began working on establishing a school in Glenrio. She organized meetings with other families in the area, many of whom had children but no access to education. Together, they raised funds to convert an unused building near the church into a classroom. Lily spent her evenings preparing lesson plans and gathering books, determined to open the school by fall. "You are doing too much," Xavier said one evening, finding her asleep at the kitchen table, head pillowed on a pile of readers. "There is so much to do," Lily mumbled, barely waking. "The children need this, Xavier. They deserve a chance to learn." "And they will have it," Xavier said gently, scooping her into his arms and carrying her to bed. "But not if you exhaust yourself. The school will still be there tomorrow." In late November, as the first cold winds of winter began to blow, Lily went into labor. Xavier sent Carlos racing to town for the doctor while he and Miguel tried to keep Lily comfortable. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Xavier held Lily's hand, feeling helpless as she struggled through pain he could not ease. "You are doing so well," he told her over and over. "You are the strongest person I know." Finally, just as the sun was setting on the second day, their son was born. He came into the world screaming lustily, and Xavier felt tears streaming down his face as the doctor placed the baby in his arms. "You have a fine, healthy boy," Dr. Martin said, smiling wearily. Xavier looked down at the tiny red face, the miniature fists waving in the air, and felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "Welcome to the world." "Let me see him," Lily said weakly from the bed, and Xavier carefully placed their son in her arms. She gazed down at the baby with such pure love that Xavier had to look away, overwhelmed. They named him Daniel Xavier Trenton, after Lily's uncle and his father. Little Danny, as they called him, had his mother's red gold hair and his father's gray eyes. He was a good baby, healthy and strong, with a pair of lungs that could wake the dead when he wanted to be fed. Parenthood was harder than anything Xavier had ever done. The sleepless nights, the constant worry, the feeling that he was responsible for this tiny, fragile life, it was terrifying. But it was also the most rewarding thing he had ever experienced. Watching Danny grow and change each day, seeing Lily blossom as a mother, Xavier felt a completeness he had not known he was missing. The school opened the following fall, with Lily teaching 20 students ranging in age from 6 to 14. She held classes 4 days a week, and Xavier could see how much joy it brought her, sharing knowledge and watching young minds grow. The ranch prospered as well. By their 3rd year of marriage, they had expanded to nearly 300 head of cattle and had hired 2 additional hands to help manage the workload. They broke ground on a new house, positioned halfway between Xavier's original cabin and the Jameson property, with a view of both the Red Mesa and the Creek Valley. The house took 2 years to complete, built slowly as time and money allowed. It was a sprawling adobe structure with 6 rooms, a deep porch, and large windows that let in light and air. Xavier and several neighbors did most of the work, and Lily painted and decorated until it felt like home. They moved in during the spring of 1887, when Danny was almost 4 years old. By then, Lily was pregnant again, and Xavier had learned to handle impending fatherhood with slightly more grace. Their daughter, Emma Rose, was born that September, a tiny thing with dark hair and her mother's honey-colored eyes. "Now we have one of each," Lily said, exhausted but happy as she held Emma. "Our family feels complete." Xavier could not have agreed more. He had gone from being a solitary rancher to a husband and father of 2, and the transformation still amazed him. This was the life he had dreamed of during all those lonely years, though he had barely let himself hope it could be real. The years passed in a blur of work and love and family. Danny grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who followed Xavier everywhere, absorbing knowledge about ranching like a sponge. Emma was her mother's daughter, bright and creative and endlessly curious about the world. Xavier and Lily continued to build their ranch and their community, becoming respected leaders in the growing settlement of Glenrio. There were hard times, of course. A drought in 1889 nearly broke them, forcing them to sell off part of the herd just to keep the remaining cattle alive. Lily's school faced opposition from some who thought education was a waste of time, particularly for girls. And Xavier himself nearly died when a horse threw him, and he broke 3 ribs and punctured a lung. But they weathered every storm together, drawing strength from each other, and from the community they had helped build. The Martinez brothers became like family, uncles to Danny and Emma, trusted partners in the ranching operation. New families moved into the area, drawn by reports of good land and honest people. On a warm evening in May of 1892, exactly 10 years after Xavier had pulled Lily from that runaway horse, they sat together on the porch of their home. Danny and Emma were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the breeze. The sun was setting behind the red mesa, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. "You ever miss St. Louis?" Xavier asked, a question he had never quite dared before. Lily looked at him in surprise. "Not even for a moment. Why would you think that?" "Because you gave up so much to come here," Xavier said. "Comfort, culture, an easier life. I just wonder sometimes if you have regrets." Lily took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "Xavier Trenton, you saved my life that day, but not in the way you think. Yes, you stopped that horse. But more importantly, you showed me what life could be. You showed me purpose and partnership and love deeper than I had ever imagined. This life is hard sometimes, but it is real in a way nothing in St. Louis ever was. I have no regrets, not a single one." "I love you," Xavier said, the words as true now as they had been the first time he spoke them. "More than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone." "I love you too," Lily replied. "You are my whole world, Xavier. You and our children and this beautiful, wild place we have made our own." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened and stars began to emerge. Inside, they could hear the children being called in for bed by the housekeeper they had recently hired, a widow from town who had needed work. The cattle lowed softly in the distance, and somewhere a coyote howled at the rising moon. This was home, Xavier thought. Not just a place, but a feeling, a collection of people and memories and moments that added up to something greater than the sum of their parts. He had started with nothing but dreams and determination, and now he had everything that mattered. "Papa, Mama, come quick." Danny's voice called from inside. "Emma is telling stories again, and you need to hear this one." Lily laughed and stood, pulling Xavier up with her. "Duty calls," she said. Best kind of duty there is, Xavier replied, following her inside. They found Emma perched on her bed, arms waving dramatically as she wove some tale about a princess and a dragon. Danny sat cross-legged on the floor, trying to look skeptical but clearly enthralled. Xavier and Lily settled in to listen, and soon they were all laughing at Emma's increasingly outlandish plot twists. Later, after the children were finally asleep, Xavier and Lily lay in their own bed, wrapped in each other's arms. Through the open window they could hear the sounds of the night, wind in the cottonwoods, an owl hunting, the soft breathing of horses in the barn. "Tell me again about the day we met," Lily said sleepily. It was a story she never tired of hearing. "I saw a dust cloud and heard screaming," Xavier began, smiling at the familiar ritual. "And I knew I had to help. I never expected that the woman on that runaway horse would change my entire life." "You changed mine too," Lily murmured. "The moment you caught that bridle, the moment you looked up at me with those steady gray eyes and told me I was safe, I think some part of me knew. I was home." "You thanked me by becoming my whole world," Xavier said softly, echoing the thought he had carried for years. "Best thanks I ever received." Lily was already asleep, her breathing deep and even. Xavier held her close, grateful beyond measure for the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. A spooked horse, a desperate rescue, and 10 years later they had built an empire of love and family. The ranch continued to thrive over the following years. By 1895, Storm Mesa Ranch was one of the most successful operations in the New Mexico territory. They ran over 500 head of cattle and had expanded into horse breeding as well, raising sturdy cow ponies that were in high demand throughout the region. Danny, at 12, was already a skilled horseman and helped with much of the ranch work. He had his father's quiet competence and his mother's quick mind. Emma, at 8, preferred books to cattle but had developed a surprising talent for working with the horses, able to gentle even the most skittish animals with patience and soft words. Lily's school had grown as well, now serving nearly 40 students and employing a second teacher to help with the load. She had established a lending library and organized cultural events that brought the scattered community together. The rough settlement of Glenrio was slowly becoming a real town, with new businesses opening and families putting down roots. In the summer of 1896, Xavier and Lily took their children on a trip to Santa Fe, their first real vacation in years. They stayed in a hotel, visited museums, and attended a concert of classical music. Emma was enchanted by everything, but Danny seemed relieved when they headed home. "I miss the ranch," he admitted as they rode back across familiar territory. "The city is too crowded, too noisy." "You are your father's son," Lily said with a smile, exchanging a look with Xavier. "Is that a bad thing?" Danny asked. "The best thing," Xavier assured him. "But make sure you get an education too, son. Your mother is right that knowledge matters. You can be a rancher and still read books, think big thoughts. Like you and Mama do," Danny said. "Exactly like that," Lily agreed. That fall, Xavier received an offer from a large cattle company to buy him out. The price they offered was staggering, more money than he had ever imagined possessing. He brought the letter to Lily, unsure how to respond. "What do you want to do?" Lily asked, reading it carefully. "I do not want to sell," Xavier admitted. "This land, this ranch, it is everything I have worked for. It is our legacy for Danny and Emma. But that is a lot of money, Lily. Enough to move back east if you wanted to give the children every advantage." "The children have every advantage right here," Lily said firmly. "They have parents who love them, good land, a strong community. More money would not make them happier, and I certainly do not want to move back east. My life is here, Xavier. Our life is here. Xavier felt relief flood through him. Then we stay. We stay, Lily confirmed, and we keep building. He wrote back declining the offer, and the matter was settled. Storm Mesa Ranch would remain in the Trenton family. As the new century approached, Xavier found himself reflecting on how much had changed since that hot August day in 1882, when he had chased down a runaway horse. He was 41 years old now, no longer the young man who had built his first cabin with dreams and determination. His hands were more scarred, his back ached on cold mornings, and gray was starting to show at his temples. But he had everything he had ever wanted and more. A wife who was his partner in every sense of the word, children who were growing into fine young people, land that flourished under their care, and a community that valued his contributions. On New Year's Eve of 1899, they hosted a party at the ranch to celebrate the turn of the century. Nearly 100 people crowded into their home and spilled out onto the porch and yard. There was music and dancing, food and drink, and a sense of excitement about the new era dawning. At midnight, as everyone counted down and then erupted in cheers, Xavier pulled Lily close and kissed her deeply. When they finally broke apart, she was laughing, her eyes sparkling in the lamplight. "Here is to the next century," she said. "May it be as blessed as the last years have been." "As long as I have you, every year will be blessed," Xavier replied. "Still such a romantic," Lily teased, but he could see she was pleased. They watched their children dance with friends, saw neighbors celebrating together, and felt a deep satisfaction. This was what they had built together, not just a ranch but a community, a place where people could thrive. The years continued their steady march. Danny grew into a man, tall and strong like his father, with a deep love for the land. At 20, he married a local girl named Sarah, and they built a house on the eastern section of the ranch. Their first child, a boy they named Xavier Daniel, was born in 1904, making Xavier and Lily grandparents. Holding his grandson for the first time, Xavier felt the circle of life completing itself. This tiny baby represented the future of everything he and Lily had built. The ranch would continue beyond them, carried forward by new generations. Emma, meanwhile, had gone to college in California, one of the first women from the area to do so. She studied literature and returned home to take over her mother's school. She never married, saying she was too busy with her students and her writing. She published a book of poems about life in the New Mexico territory that received critical acclaim, bringing pride to the family. As Xavier and Lily moved into their 60s, they gradually handed over more of the ranch operations to Danny and the Martinez brothers, who were still going strong despite their own advancing years. Xavier still rode out most days to check on things, unable to fully let go of the work that had defined his life. But he also learned to appreciate moments of rest, sitting on the porch with Lily in the evenings, watching the sunset paint the mesa red. "We did well, did we not?" Lily said one evening in 1910. They were both 65 now, their hair silver, their faces lined with the years. But Lily's eyes were still that same stunning honey gold, and Xavier's heart still skipped when she smiled at him. "We did better than well," Xavier said. "We built something that will last, Lily. Not just the ranch, but the family, the community, that matters." "I am so glad that horse bolted," Lily said suddenly, and Xavier laughed. "So am I," he admitted. "Best thing that ever happened to me, chasing down that terrified mare." "You were so brave," Lily said. "Riding like that, risking yourself for a stranger." "I was just doing what needed to be done," Xavier said. "I had no idea I was rescuing the woman who would become my everything." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened. Inside, they could hear voices and laughter. Danny's family was visiting for dinner, and Emma had come as well. Their grandson, now 6 years old, was probably running wild through the house. "Tell me your favorite memory," Lily said. "Of all our years together, which moment stands out?" Xavier thought about it. There were so many to choose from. Their wedding day, the births of their children, the first time Danny successfully branded a calf, watching Emma graduate from school. But one memory rose above the rest. "The night Danny was born," he said finally. "When you were in labor and it was taking so long, I was terrified, more scared than I had ever been. And then he arrived, and the doctor put him in my arms, and I looked down at that tiny face and then up at you, and I felt like my heart was going to burst. In that moment, I understood what it really meant to love someone, to create life together, to be part of something bigger than myself. That was when I became more than just a cowboy trying to build a ranch. I became a father, a family man. You gave me that, Lily." Tears rolled down Lily's cheeks, catching the last rays of sunlight. "My favorite is simpler," she said. "It is right now, this moment. Being here with you after all these years, knowing our family is inside, healthy and happy, knowing we built all of this together. Every day with you has been my favorite day, Xavier." He leaned over and kissed her gently. "I love you, Lily Trenton. I have loved you since the moment I saw you clinging to that saddle, hair flying, eyes wide with fear. And I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "And I love you," Lily said. "My rescuer, my partner, my whole world." They were called inside for dinner shortly after, and the evening passed in warmth and laughter. Young Xavier regaled them with stories from school, and Danny discussed plans for expanding the herd in the spring. Emma shared news about one of her students who had been accepted to a university back east. The conversation flowed easily, the way it did with people who loved each other deeply. After everyone had left and the house was quiet, Xavier and Lily prepared for bed. Xavier moved more slowly now, his joints stiff after decades of hard labor. Lily had developed a slight limp from an old fall, but her spirit remained undiminished. They had grown old together, weathering time as they had weathered everything else, side by side. In bed, Lily curled against Xavier's chest as she had done for nearly 30 years. His arm came around her automatically, holding her close. "You think we will get another 20 years?" Lily asked softly. "I intend to try," Xavier said, "though I suspect we will slow down a bit more." "We have earned some rest," Lily said. "We have worked hard." "We have," Xavier agreed. "And we have so much to show for it, not just the ranch and the buildings and the cattle, but the family, the love, the life we have shared. That is what truly matters." "I am not afraid of what comes next," Lily said. "As long as we face it together." "Always together," Xavier promised. "That is how we have done everything, and that is how we will continue." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, the sounds of the ranch quiet around them. Outside, the stars wheeled across the vast New Mexico sky, unchanging witnesses to the passage of human lives and loves. Xavier and Lily did indeed get their 20 more years, and then some. They lived to see their grandson graduate from the agricultural college in Las Cruces and return to help run the ranch. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 1932 with a huge party attended by over 200 people, a testament to the lives they had touched and the community they had helped build. When Xavier passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1935 at the age of 79, Lily grieved deeply, but not bitterly. They had been given 53 years together, more than many people got. She knew how lucky she was to have loved and been loved so completely. Lily lived another 5 years, staying active and sharp until the very end. She continued teaching part-time, mentoring young teachers and advocating for education throughout the territory, which had become the state of New Mexico in 1912. She wrote her memoirs, a detailed account of life on the frontier that became required reading in local schools. When Lily died in 1940 at the age of 81, she was surrounded by family. Danny and Emma were there, along with several grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren. Her last words were soft but clear. "Tell Xavier I am coming," she whispered, a smile on her lined face. "Tell him I never stopped loving him, not for a single day." They buried her next to Xavier on a hill overlooking the Red Mesa, with a view of the ranch they had built together spreading out below. The marker read, "Lily Jameson Trenton, beloved wife, mother, teacher, friend." Beneath it, someone had added, "She made the wild places bloom." Storm Mesa Ranch continued to operate for another 50 years under the management of their descendants, a living legacy to the love story that had begun with a runaway horse on a hot August day in 1882. The house Xavier and Lily built still stood, lovingly maintained by each generation, a monument to what two people could create when they chose to build a life together. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sunset painted the mesa red and gold, people swore they could see two figures sitting on the old porch, hand in hand, watching over the land they had loved and the family they had created. Whether it was real or just a story told to romantic grandchildren did not matter. The love between Xavier and Lily Trenton had become part of the land itself, enduring as the mesa, constant as the underground spring that still flowed beneath the property. Their story was one of chance and choice, of courage and commitment, of two people from different worlds finding their way to each other and choosing to build something lasting. Xavier had saved Lily from a runaway horse, and in return, she had given him everything he had ever dreamed of and more. She had become his whole world and he had become hers, and together they had created a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. In the end, that was what mattered, not the ranch or the cattle or even the house on the hill. What mattered was the love they shared, the family they raised, and the community they helped build. They took a wild, harsh land and made it into a home through sheer determination and unwavering partnership. They proved that with love and hard work, anything was possible, even turning a chance encounter with a frightened woman on a runaway horse into a lifetime of happiness and purpose that echoed through generations.